Hello everyone and welcome back to Make Better Wedding Films, the show for new ideas for radical films about people in love. My name is Ben, I will be your host. And before we get into the show, we've got a couple of announcements to get through. The first of which is to let you know that this show is sponsored by MusicBed. MusicBed is the number one home for the best music for your wedding films, hands down. You guys know that. And if you're not using MusicBed for your wedding films, what are you doing? They've got the best music and they've got incredible curated playlists to help you find music super quick. And if you're still struggling to find music, you can message them and they'll get back to you with a whole plethora of suggestions for your film. They're great like that. So yeah, make sure you guys use the link below, sign up for MusicBed with the promo code MBWF. You get your first month free and it lets them know that we sent you, which helps out the show. Secondly, this show is sponsored by Love Stories TV. Now, Love Stories TV have their annual Wedding Film Awards on right now. They've got over $10,000 in cash prizes available across multiple categories, such as Film of the Year, Filmmaker of the Year, Love Story of the Year, Best International Film, Best Social Edit, Best New Filmmaker, Best LGBTQ+ Wedding, Best Music. There's loads of options for you guys to submit your films, so make sure you get them in before Feb 18th. That's when submissions close. And once they close, the judges will start deliberating and figure out who's going to win. I myself am a judge in the Wedding Film Awards this year. So I'm really excited to see what you guys put forward. So make sure you check out the link below. Submit your films before February 18th, 2022. And good luck to everyone. That's it for the announcements. On to the episode. Dylan Kitchener's extremely cinematic and intimate portraits of couples are an inspiration to many. His masterful understanding of light and composition are a wonder to behold, but it's how he directs his couples and makes them feel comfortable in front of his camera that seems to catch the attention and envy of wedding filmmakers around the world. On today's show, Dylan breaks down his process for planning, directing, and capturing intimate stories of two people in love. My name is Ben, and this is Make Better Wedding Films.
I have done a few weddings and elopements, but basically what I'm offering to couples is basically, I document their elopement day with the photography, and I offer these kind of couple kind of stories through video as like an add-on, and as like a way to kind of go an extra dimension deeper into their story. Basically, obviously I can't do both the wedding photography and videography at the same time. I know some people can, and they can pull it off, but I can't use those two separate parts of my brain at the same time. So I have to do it separately. So that's why I just keep them separate. And doing that this way, like a pre-wedding kind of video, is a way for me to also have more flexibility and control over things as well, and more time with the couple to kind of do what I need to do with the video. Whereas, with the wedding day, it's all very, it's all very dictated by, very much so by the weather, the schedule, and all this sort of stuff. So whereas doing it the way I'm doing it with a pre-wedding kind of video, it's or a post-wedding video, I have more control over things, which is what I like.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, is that like for a traditional wedding video, we are subject to the event itself. We are documenting an event. Whereas when you remove that constraint, and you start to, craft these scenarios that you can have complete creative control over, different options come up. So I would love to dive into your process with that now around just, I guess, maybe starting at the beginning before the day itself. How are you kind of like pre-visualizing, coming up with these ideas? How are you like liaising with the couple to make sure it's going to suit them and get them on board? Like, what's the kind of pre-production process for these kinds of pre-wedding shoots?
Yeah, so basically, I spend a lot of time, talking with the couple, and I kind of tell them what ideas I have in mind. We talk about potential locations. We talk together about finding not only outdoor locations but also indoor locations as well. So I usually have a bit of input into the indoor interior spaces where the scenes are happening, and a lot of time goes into I do spend a bit of time kind of pre-visualizing and location scouting. I do a bit of storyboarding. And also, deciding things like, will this particular scene be, shot, like at 50p or 60p, or will it be, will I do want to shoot this at like a normal kind of speed at 25p? And or maybe what focal length do I want to use for this particular scene, or what aperture will I use? So I put together a lot of visual inspiration as well. That I see in movies or wherever, and start kind of crafting out putting together a story, in my mind before I actually shoot. So basically, I'm just trying to put as much thought as possible and as much planning as I can into the shoot before we actually shoot. And for me, that's how I approach photography as well. I'm the kind of person that, I need a plan. I need some sort of plan in my head, and but also allow spontaneous things to happen and give space for that as well. And I find when you can combine those two things together, you can get some really good stuff. I also find out a lot about the couple, things that they perhaps maybe they're good at, maybe talents they have, like playing instruments. Do they like to dance? And think about ways that we can kind of incorporate that into their story, into their video as well. The great thing about doing, not as just like a pre-wedding video is I can be more kind of we can be more kind of flexible in terms of getting the best light. We can schedule things for later in the evening or early in the morning, or it's just more flexibility and room to be creative.
It's interesting because I just had a conversation with another company, Unique Wedding, who do a lot of pre-wedding films and base a lot of their style on their pre-wedding shoots. And I think it just comes down to that creative freedom around like being able to pre-plan stuff, because pre-planning is something that I'm not very good at. It's not like a natural skill and a natural like way I work. I'm very much show up, be intuitive on the day, capture a bunch of shit, and then get it all in the editing suite and figure out what the fuck's going on. That's kind of my style. That's where I feel comfortable in. But the more conversations I have with filmmakers like yourself, I get a bit of FOMO around like the different kinds of creativity you get when you start to pre-plan and pre-visualize, and like how you're talking about like thinking about what frame rates you're going to use and what apertures you're like. Man, I would love to like go into a wedding day or a pre-wedding shoot or whatever, feeling that prepared. Like I'm used to that kind of like that sort of slightly anxious, fly by the seat of your pants feeling, especially on a wedding day, and then just feeling a bit more comfort zone when I get in the editing suite.
I suppose this is the thing is like I don't. Someone like yourself, I'm sure you photograph, you video like a lot of weddings every year. So I suppose you rely on you're more experienced and you rely more on your intuition, I suppose, as when you approach each wedding. Whereas myself, it's still early days for me and I'm still learning, and I don't, photography is still primarily what I do, and the video is just a kind of a side thing currently. So I do have time to kind of put more thought into each shoot, I suppose. So
I'm sure every videographer listening to this is cursing you, saying that like, oh, video is just a side thing, I'm not that good, I'm not that experienced. It's like, and here you are making incredible work. Okay, so oh man, there's so many aspects of your work I just would love to dive into. I mean, okay, when it comes to, because this is something that I often struggle with and would love to get better at. when you're planning and then like shooting on the day and composing, thinking about light. One thing I noticed with your work is the color palettes are very controlled color palettes, lighting. So outside of just being like experienced with seeing light and seeing color, what goes into the planning with making sure your color palettes in your frames are just super tight and controlled?
Yeah. So again, I spend a lot of time, with my couples. Kind of we talk about things like wardrobe. What colors we're going to wear, and I explain to my couples, why color's important. So definitely that's a lot of thought goes into that side of things, and also a lot of thought goes into again the interior spaces we shoot in. So obviously the light and just the general the tones of the interior space as well. So I'll spend a lot of time on Airbnb or whatever, just kind of going through different options for apartments or houses or whatever, and just finding something that looks like it's going to kind of match the feeling and has the tones that I'm kind of looking for in the video. And if I'm shooting and I see something in the background that maybe a lamp or something, or it just doesn't quite fit in with the color palette of the scene, I'll just remove it or move things around a bit so it looks kind of pleasing. So basically, I just try and nail as much as I can while shooting. Just try and nail the color palette and the general tones of the scene as much as possible as I can while shooting, and it just makes things life easier when you're grading later on.
And lighting wise, are you doing much to control the lighting, especially like in those indoor environments? Or is it again you just like looking for, like on Airbnb, like looking for the places that might have good light and just trusting that it'll be that way when you arrive?
Yeah, basically it's mostly finding places that look like they have really nice light, nice big windows and nice interior spaces. Basically relying on window light most of the time. But sometimes, for instance, like I've shown up to a place that looked great in the photos and it looked like the light was going to be really nice, and you get there and it's Scotland, so it can be a really dark kind of cloudy day. There's no sun, so you get there and you're like, oh my god, it's really dark and it's not kind of how I envisioned. And so I always bring with me I've got some lights I take with me to every shoot for the video. I carry some small like aperture NC lights, some small ones, and I've got like an aperture 300D I take with me as well on a C stand, which I use sometimes if bounce back a bit of light if I have to, but that's on rare occasions. So mostly it's just window light that I use on the indoor spaces.
It's the sort of thing that I kind of like expected, but wanted to ask anyway, just in case there was some like magic secret thing that you do that I wasn't aware of. But again, I think it comes down to that pre-planning around like being intentional with the locations that you're picking, not just going like, sure, we'll like shoot at your place or we'll shoot it like, like you're just being intentional.
Yeah, that's kind of how I approach it. I just think like, when someone like makes a movie, like a Hollywood movie or whatever, a lot of thought goes into the wardrobe, the colors, the interior, the set, the design, everything is the cinematography, the location scouting, and that's basically what I'm trying to do with the limitations that I have is just put as much thought as I can possible into all of this stuff and see what happens. So
I think that's the thing is that we're often working in environments that are very outside of our control, and for like a traditional wedding videographer filming a wedding, it's an event outside of our control. And I think exploring these routes of pre-weddings and more stylized shoots that we do have more control of, you open up like options for just getting cleaner color palettes and nicer locations and things and things like that. And I think people a lot of people, and myself included, like look at your work and the fact that it looks so much like a movie, and go like, how can I make my work filming a wedding look like that? And I think the unfortunate answer is you kind of can't when it comes to just like a
Yeah,
actual wedding,
you're right.
like
Yeah,
which is like the
yeah,
kind of shit answer. But I mean, like, hopefully
yeah,
it maybe inspires videographers to explore these kind of these pre-weddings and these things, like like exploring different options with couples if they are interested in
yeah.
going that way with their work, or or maybe there's something in what you do that we can, like some small aspect that we can just take into a traditional wedding. The big aspect, I think, to your work, I mean, there's so many, but from when I put the word out on Instagram that I was having the conversation with you, the thing that kept coming back again and again and again and again and again was asking about your directing. So I think, like we've talked about these, like the different direction you take with your video versus your photo. There's kind of like the pre-wedding stuff so that you have more control, and um, the kind of more cinematic nature of that because there's a lot more pre-planning involved and stuff. And I think like kind of the last piece of the puzzle, I think, is um, what you're doing with your couples in these environments. You set up these environments, you select the beautiful location, you get the wardrobe on point. You've obviously met and engaged with these couples, and you know them, and you've got crafted this scenario. You arrive on set, and then you're doing something with them to allow them to like get in a bath and like touch each other's arm beautifully, and like brush each other's hair. Like, the actual things they are doing are beautiful and soft and intimate and delicate, and I think that is probably the biggest thing people see in your work and go, how can I do that? So would you mind, I guess, starting to break down your process of like when you finally get on set with these couples, how do you start to warm them up to get to them to that point where you're capturing this beautiful intimate footage?
So basically, it starts with what I show. I mean, we all know this. Whatever you show online is what you kind of attract. And basically, in the first place, I show couples being intimate and with each other and very close, and basically, I show this stuff, and they're the kind of couples I attract, and they're the kind of couples I want to attract. So from the get go, it already is a little bit easier, I suppose, because you already have couples that they want this. So, I've never really had to try and push this or, try and make couples do things that they don't really feel comfortable with, because they already, in a place where that they want to, be able to express themselves like this on the video. So, so that's an important thing, I think, first of all. And second of all, everybody says this and everybody knows this, but just spending time with a couple, that's obviously very important. I want them to feel comfortable around me, and and feel like they can open up, and they can, I want them to see that I'm a pretty normal, nice guy, and and we're just going to hang out and do some fun stuff together, and there's nothing to be kind of stressed about or whatever. So that's important, and also this applies to photography as well. I think when you're kind of I guess it comes with time and experience. When you are very kind of confident in what you're trying to do, and you have a kind of clear vision, and you've put a lot of thought into what you're trying to do, and basically and the couple can see that. I think it makes the couple feel very like they're in safe hands as well. They feel confident with what you're doing and what you're capturing, and it allows them to kind of open up and relax, I suppose. So I make sure, even when I feel like inside things aren't going, I'm filming and maybe things aren't going how I kind of planned in my own mind, I still try and always I just appear confident and in what I'm doing, and and basically just always convey that. So So I think it's much easier to direct couples when you're confident in what you're doing. So, or at least appear confident.
One of the questions I have is around like how you kind of sustain the energy throughout a shoot, because and what so there's that aspect, and then there's the aspect of like how much is it contrived in the edit, because like I did an engagement shoot recently where like, and it was, I was doing both photo and video, and it's the first time, one of the only times I've really done that, where I was very much leading the direction. Like my videography style, I'm usually like second directing to the photographer. The photographer is doing most of the directing, and so this was an instance where I was doing all of the directing, and on the day it felt like it took a while to warm up, and we kind of got there, and it was good, but like I got into the edit and was like, oh no, I've got stuff I can work with. Like, so I guess the question, like one of the questions is like, how much is that relaxed, intimate vibe contrived in editing? How much are you leaving out? Or is it more about it is feeling good on the day and it's just, you're just capturing that?
I think it's a mixture of both. It's a mixture of both. Sometimes it is very real and intimate, and a lot of the time it is like that. And I'm capturing this, and there's a certain kind of mood, while we're shooting, and that's all very real. And and other times, it might appear on, in the final product, it appears all very kind of intimate and all that. But behind the scenes, we're mostly just mucking around, and there's a lot of just laughing and being a bit silly, and this kind of stuff in between all of that. So it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to know, and I think it comes down to probably a bit of your experience in just like being around couples and directing them, and just going with the flow around like having a laugh when that's the thing to do, and and being a bit more reserved when they're obviously in a moment, and just like cueing into those kind of like social things of what's happening and how you then react to it. I think probably just comes from experience a lot.
Yeah, you've explained it really well. Yeah, like you just have to have an intuition and know when you need to maybe just be a bit more quiet and just let things happen, and not say much and just capture what's happening. And other times you have to know when you need to maybe say something or do something, or intervene a little bit and direct a little bit. So it's just having that kind of intuition, and I guess it comes with experience, I suppose.
And I guess one of my other questions around the directing is how do you go about balancing or like sustaining your couples through these kinds of shoots? Are these shoots done over multiple days? Is it just like one big long day? And because like that's something where like these aren't professional actors, they're just couples. So like how are you balancing their energy levels for these often quite emotional and intimate kind of scenarios you're crafting?
Yeah. So it's usually done over 2 days. So usually what I try and do is on one day we do kind of the indoor stuff. That takes a few hours. We do all the indoor scenes, and then the next day we'll go outside and in the highlands or wherever it is, and do all the outdoor stuff. So it's spread over 2 days, and that way I can kind of pick the best day in terms of the lighting outside. Try and pick the day where maybe it's cloudy, or maybe we can and if it's sunny, maybe wait until the evening, or maybe get up really early in the morning the next day and shoot. It just allows us to be more flexible, and for everyone to kind of have a bit more energy, because it can be doing these kind of things, doing video, it can be tiring for everybody, and a lot of emotion goes into it, and energy. So I think for me anyway, spreading it over kind of 2 days, it works really well.
Well, that makes sense, because I think that's what I've noticed too. Like every time I have done like some kind of like engagement shoot or pre-wedding shoot with a couple, they've only got so much energy reservoir for that kind of sustained shoot. I noticed in the last one I did, I think it was like a 4-hour shoot, and we had like a break for dinner in the middle, and like by the end of it, like come sunset, like they were pretty they were pretty cooked.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, including yourself too.
Yeah,
That's
I
how it
was
is.
too, because I was like not used to
Yeah,
directing that
yeah,
heavily the whole time, and I was fried too.
yeah,
Like we've talked a little bit about, obviously we talked about directing, and we talked a bit about your gear. There was a few questions around gear on Instagram. So obviously we've
yeah.
mentioned um, the camera and the slightly wider lenses, but with your filmmaking stuff, especially for these like pre-wedding stuff, I imagine it is quite simple. It's just you and the camera for a lot of it. And you mentioned you've got a little bit of lighting here and there,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
I imagine it being quite simple.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I try to keep it pretty simple. That's why I don't really use the gimbal unless I have a particular shot in mind where it's gonna work really well. I'd like to work pretty run and gun. One camera. I use one lens now, and I keep it pretty simple. The thing with gimbals also is it's such a pain to set up, and you got to balance it and all this sort of stuff. So that's why I prefer to stick with one camera, and I don't use any drones really. I've got a drone, but I never use it. I prefer to be kind of keep things pretty close and intimate with the couples. So if I feel like I need a drone shot for a particular kind of shot, I might use it, but rarely I do. But basically, that's it. Basically, just keep it very simple.
And if you are doing, I think that this is something I would love to know, because when I did do the shoot where I was doing both photo and video, I wanted to keep my kit like super small, and I was like on the whole dual harness photographer thing. If you've got like the Ursa and you're also doing photos, like how does that work? Are you kind of like taking time, like, okay, I'm going to focus on video and just do some video time, and then put the Ursa down and pick up the photo camera and do like, or is it very much more fluid and flipping in between?
That's why I keep them very separate. So the video is done on a completely separate day to the photo. So I've never really had to do both at once. I've never done photo and video on the same day. Because for me, it would start getting too complicated if I'm especially using two different camera systems. So I use Nikon for photo and Blackmagic for video. For me, it'd be too stressful, and I'd be switching camera systems all the time, and it would be that's why I just keep it separate. It's easier for me.
So there's, because on going through deep dives through your website, there's a few like collections with a couple where you're like capturing their whole pre-wedding, elopement, everything in both photo and video. And in some of the pre-wedding stuff, there's photos too. So is that like a second shooter who's getting photo stuff? Like, in my mind, I'm picturing this scene. I can't remember the couple's names, but like the bath scene, where there's both, obviously there's the video of all that bath scene, but there's also photos of it. Is that like, are you having a second shooter on that day who's handling some kind of like secondary photo stuff?
So basically, that's a lot of couples, what they like to do is and it works well for me too, is they I'll photograph their elopement, which is their elopement day, their ceremony and everything, and then the next day we'll go out and basically kind of elope all over again, but except this time with video. And maybe it'll be a little bit different, obviously. Either some couples like to have a ceremony again and read some nice words to each other, or some couples like to prepare some words that they wrote, some different words, and about their story and their how they their life together, and read those words, which are overlaid onto the video. So that, and basically for me, I really like that, because I get to photograph their elopement day, and the next day I get to make the video, and again have full creative control over that. And obviously I'm just working with myself. I'm not working with another photographer, so I can I have full kind of control of what happens. So that's what I'm offering to a lot of couples, is this package. So
you are doing both photo and video on some of these days? Is that what you were
Yeah, so
saying? Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, so I'll photograph their elopement day, but on the next day, on a totally separate day, we'll do the video. So, and it's basically kind of like, they're wearing their wedding clothes if they want to, again, and we're going to some similar locations, but it's a way to. It's not really focused on their wedding ceremony. It's more focused on their story leading up to the ceremony, basically, and kind of delving deeper into their relationship.
I see. Cool. No, it's good to know. It's good to know that it's I guess, very intentionally different kind of creative mindsets, like not flipping in between. Because I've had conversations with someone before around that kind of like task switching and how you kind of like lose time in that. I think that's probably something to think about there, where it's like sort of having a dedicated, like, this is video time. We're going to like switch our brain into video mode. And then, like, this is photo time. We're going to switch our brain into photo mode and not expect ourselves to be able to switch in between and do either great.
Yeah. Like, see, if I did that, I'd get nothing. That's the thing. Yeah. I'd get nothing. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Especially for people who are hybrid and do, like, offer both those things. Like, I guess, knowing, like, just thinking about the option of maybe splitting it out, or you just a different way to think about each craft. I guess just something to
exactly
think about. Well, look, man, I mean, we're coming to the end of things now, sort of starting to like wrap things up, but there was I guess a couple of big questions left that I would love to touch on. One that we can kind of just, I think, briefly touch on, because it's a huge topic around the post-production editing side of things. Because when I look at your work, there are some videographers' work that I look at, and it's very much like an editing flex. And I look at your work, and I think it's very much more like a pre-production and production flex. And then the editing kind of like takes a back seat. Not so much a back seat in like the editing's bad. It's that it's almost like a great chef who like has amazing ingredients and doesn't have to do too much to them to make an amazing dish.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's kind of what I think of when I look at your work. Is this like incredible ingredients that then don't need too much done to them. So I think my question for you is, like, when you sit down to edit, because when I look at your work and it's got this beautiful kind of poetic aspect to it, like, how do you balance in the edit a kind of poetic nature versus a kind of pure storytelling nature? I think, if that kind of makes sense as a question. Terrible question, but do with it what you will.
Yeah, so basically with editing, so you're right. So with the editing, and to be honest, to be completely frank, I'm still learning a lot when it comes to editing. I'm still discovering my style when it comes to editing. So that's something I'm still working on. But I discovered earlier on, even though I like this kind of stuff, I'm not very good at the kind of the slick transitions and all this kind of stuff, which I admire in other videos, wedding videos. But for me, it just didn't feel natural. So I try and I steer clear of the kind of those kind of things, and keep it pretty raw and simple. And as you said, I try and nail the footage as much as I can, while I'm shooting, to create cinematic footage. And basically, I want, I keep my videos, I don't want them to be long. I want to keep them pretty short. I'd rather have, a video rather than be like, 10 minutes long that's, and use lots of footage and, stretch out the footage. I'd rather keep it shorter, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and have, and be able to use footage, that's really, I'm really happy with. And that has more impact. That's the way I approach it. Is less is kind of more. So that's what I'm basically doing is keeping them short and sweet, but with a lot of impact, which is what I'm trying to aim for. I think music is very important as well. I think that is something that, for me anyway, I pay a lot of attention to. Before editing, one thing I do is I choose the music, and based on the music that I find, I kind of sculpt out how the story is going to go in the editing process based on the music and how it's going to feel. And that kind of, for me anyway, gives structure to the way I edit. So usually what I do is start with the song first. I put that in the timeline, and then I'll before shooting, I already have in my mind a way I'd like to open the movie, and usually a way I'd like to close the movie. And once I have kind of the song, I know how I want to open it, I know how I want to close it. I just kind of put everything else in between. So that's basically how I approach editing.
I'm similar in the sense that I need to know how I'm starting, and then I don't often need to know how I'm finishing, but certainly the intro is something that I definitely I spend a lot of time figuring out how I'm gonna start. But I imagine too, because you do so much around pre-production, even storyboarding, it probably makes the post-production process run quite smoothly.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I like to do storyboarding, and it gives me kind of structure and an idea of how I want it to look in the final product. So.
Cool. Nice. And are you grading in your editing software, or you bring it over to DaVinci to grade?
Yeah, so I shoot everything in Blackmagic Raw. So basically, I say everything's within the Blackmagic kind of ecosystem. So I shoot with Blackmagic cameras in Blackmagic Raw, and grade in DaVinci Resolve. And so basically, with my grading, I'm not really using any LUTs. I just basically grade each scene from scratch. Contrast, saturation, hues, luminance, saturation, white balance, split toning. I just kind of grade it all depending on how I want the mood, the scene to kind of feel. Basically, keep that pretty simple too, I suppose. But yeah, I do spend a lot of time in grading, because I think a lot of the feeling and emotion can be achieved with depending on how you grade the scene. So yeah.
Good to know. It's grading is again one of those alongside proper audio post-production is one of those skills that's on my to-do list to really upskill in, because it's one of those things I just keep putting off and keep just kind of fudging through. I keep fudging through grading, and I would love to get a lot better at grading, and really dive into the likes of Resolve and kind of do.
Yeah, what do you use for grading?
I just do everything natively and Final Cut.
Yeah,
Final Cut. Yeah. I've built some LUTs in Color Finale that I kind of use as my base, and then kind of grade underneath that. And it does the trick. And certainly now having access to 10-bit color,
makes a big difference.
just a cleaner image, it just makes a huge difference with grading. But I would love to go just that step further into just learning more about grading properly. So one of those skills to that's on the
there's always something
to-do list. There's always something, which is good. Last question as we kind of round out the show here, and it's kind of a bit of a look back at everything we've kind of talked about, and trying to distill it down into some sort of takeaway. But basically, would you have, I guess, kind of one major piece of advice for wedding filmmakers wanting to, I guess, create more raw, intimate, emotional films, films like yours? I think there's the somewhat simple answer of delving into the more controlled pre-wedding, kind of stylized shoot realm. And but was there any sort of piece of advice that maybe speaks to both that and even just a more traditional, wedding filming and event kind of world around just getting like footage and a film that just feels more raw, more intimate, more delicate, more some aspect of how you do what you do?
I think basically, for me anyway, I think you need to really care about what you're doing. You really need to, care about the couple and their story, and want to capture it in the best way possible. And putting in those extra hours, to plan and come up with something special for the couple. I think it goes a long way in being able to capture, more of a, intimate kind of raw kind of feeling, and get something that's more natural out of the couple. I think
that's it though. It's because that's certainly the difference compared to someone like myself, who I think a lot of wedding videographers can relate to how I work, where we obviously we love our couples, but everything before the wedding day is you get to know your couples, but it's very much get to know them, get to know the timeline and the logistics, and then you show up on the day, and then most of the creative stuff comes from when you show up on the day, the filming, and then a lot of the post-production editing side of things. So I think the takeaway here is starting to flex those creative muscles and putting in the creative effort for the wedding day. I think is probably the biggest takeaway here. When people are looking at your work.
Yeah, I think whatever you put in is what you're going to get out, and that's how I approach it anyway. And I think too, for me, music is such an important aspect of a wedding film, and I think for me anyway, paying more attention to the music and in being able to convey the kind of message you want to convey, I think music is one of the most, if not the most important aspect. That can completely change the way a movie feels just by the song, and how the viewer feels. So I think that's a big part. That's an area that I spend hours, looking at various music websites, finding the perfect song, because I think it's so important.
Fantastic. Well, this was awesome to get to talk through your process, learn from you, and I think just really inspiring for me to I don't know, just to get that little kick up the ass to get out of my comfort zone and switch up my creative process. I think is probably the biggest thing for me around putting in that creative effort ahead of time, thinking about ways to maybe experiment with pre-wedding shoots, or just try different things and pre-visualize more and do. And so that was awesome, man. Your work is amazing. It's so unique in the wedding in the wedding film space. It is like a breath of fresh air and something just to look at and get inspired and know that there is different ways to do things. So I just wanted to take the time to say thank you for making the time to come on the call and come on the podcast. And it's been awesome to meet and chat, man.
It was a real pleasure, Ben. Thank you for inviting me on. It was really great to chat.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. Well, that's going to do us basically. And nothing else left to say other than thank you, and see you guys all next time.